All right, today we're going to do something really cool. We're cracking open an ancient playbook for economic prosperity. And seriously, you should forget any ideas you have about primitive, simple economies. What we're about to uncover is a system so sophisticated, laid out in texts like the famous Arthashastra, that it has some pretty powerful lessons for us, even today. So let's dive right in. So let's start with this question. Just think about it for a second. You're trying to manage the finances of a massive empire, but you've got no computers, no spreadsheets, no super advanced algorithms. How in the world do you pull that off? Well, the answer, as we're about to see, wasn't about technology at all. It was built on a really powerful philosophy of balance, of ethics, and, believe it or not, sustainable growth. So before we can even get into the nuts and bolts of taxes and budgets, we have to understand the foundation. We have to get to the core philosophy of it all. What was money for in ancient India? The answer to that really lies in the relationship between two absolutely crucial concepts. And this, right here, is the heart of their entire system. You have Artha, which means wealth or prosperity. But, and this is the key, it wasn't just a free-for-all grab for cash. It had to be guided by Dharma, which is all about ethical, righteous conduct. Think of it this way. Making money was good, it was even seen as necessary. But how you made it and what you did with it mattered just as much. It was basically a built-in check against runaway greed. It was designed to make sure that prosperity served the whole of society, not just a few people at the top. It was prosperity with a purpose. And this is exactly what that purpose looked like in practice. Wealth wasn't for the king to just hoard in a giant vault somewhere. No way. It was seen as a tool, a resource to build a better, more stable society. Its job was to sustain families, to uphold social responsibilities, to make sure the state itself was stable, and to fund public welfare. You could almost say it was the fuel for the entire social engine. Okay, so let's move on to the engine that powered all of this: revenue. How did the government actually fund all these big activities? Well, the main method, no surprise, was taxation. But their approach was incredibly, well, nuanced. I absolutely love this quote from the Arthashastra. It just captures the whole idea perfectly. The state should take what it needs, like a bee collecting honey from a flower, but it should never take so much that it hurts the flower itself, the people, and their ability to create wealth. It's such a powerful metaphor for sustainable economics, isn't it? So, what did moderate actually look like? Well, for agriculture, which was really the backbone of the entire economy, the standard tax rate was about 1/6 of the produce. And this was widely considered a fair, affordable amount that let farmers thrive while still contributing what was needed for the state to function. But here's the really smart part. They did not put all their eggs in one basket. Just look at this diversified portfolio. Yeah, you had the agricultural tax, but revenue was also flowing in from trade and customs duties, from taxes on professionals, from mining and forestry, and even from state-owned businesses. This wasn't just simple taxation. It was a really sophisticated strategy to build a resilient, stable financial foundation for the entire empire. Okay, so the state has been like a careful bee collecting all this revenue. The next logical question is, where did all that money go? This is where that commitment to the public good we talked about becomes crystal clear. And you can see their spending was incredibly strategic. Let's break this down. The biggest slice of the pie went to defense and security, the state's most basic duty. But then look where the rest went. A huge chunk was for infrastructure, things like roads and irrigation projects to boost the economy. Another big piece for direct welfare activities, and the rest to run a professional administration. This is a budget that's clearly focused on three things: protection, productivity, and people. Now, all of this sounds great in theory, but you can't just wing it, right? It requires a really sophisticated back-end system to manage everything. So let's look at the blueprint for how they actually handled the state treasury, which was, you guessed it, surprisingly formal and well-structured. What's really remarkable is that they had these specialized roles that would be perfectly at home in a modern company or government. You had the Samharta. Think of him as a modern chief revenue officer. His whole job was overseeing all the money coming in. And then you had the Sanidhata, who was the state treasurer, managing the vaults and state funds. This clear separation of duties was just a brilliant way to ensure accountability and, frankly, to cut down on corruption. And their whole approach to financial planning was guided by these principles that would make any modern economist just nod in approval. The number one goal was always to run a surplus, make sure revenue was greater than spending. They were focused on allocating resources efficiently, not wasting them, and crucially, they always maintained a reserve fund for emergencies. That's just smart fiscal discipline and incredible foresight. So what happened during those emergencies? When a disaster like a famine or a flood struck? Well, they had a crisis playbook. The plan was totally clear. Step 1, immediately cut taxes to ease the burden on people. Step 2, open up the state granaries and distribute food from the reserves. Step 3, give direct financial aid to those who are hit the hardest. This wasn't panic. This was a well-rehearsed, logical plan designed to keep society stable when things got tough.
Okay, so let's just zoom out for a minute. We've seen the philosophy, the income, the spending, the management, the whole shebang. So what does all this ancient wisdom really mean for us today? Well, the connections are actually pretty remarkable.
This is where it all just clicks into place. That ancient principle of fair taxation based on a person's ability to pay, that's pretty much the foundation of modern progressive tax systems. State spending on public works, we just call that public investment in infrastructure today. That core goal of social welfare and justice, today we call it welfare-oriented governance. And their careful, responsible management of state funds, that's the very definition of financial accountability and fiscal discipline. The language has changed, but the core ideas, they're identical. Which leaves us with a final, kind of provocative question. These principles, balancing profit with purpose, creating sustainable revenue, investing in the public good, they aren't just some dusty ancient history. They are a timeless blueprint for a stable, prosperous society. So if they had this stuff figured out 2,000 years ago, the real question is, in our complex, modern world, what essential lessons from this ancient playbook have we maybe forgotten?